In the wake of Shadow of the Erdtree, I've been playing some of FromSoft's contemporaries. Amongst a sea of Souls-likes, Another Crab's Treasure is a charming standout. A cute concept, endearing characters, robust world exploration, matched with a simple yet engaging combat system. These elements orbit a race to life-altering treasure, whereas the player's fortune lies in the climactic battles over it. While the tides of Crustacean Ring roar to tremendous highs, these bosses left me feeling pretty low. Left to wallow in fool's gold, I asked myself, what is the secret sauce that they lacked? The first ingredient is stakes. The dramatic kind. Battles without significant challenge and purpose become haphazard filler. Stakes are further enhanced by an engrossing atmosphere so stark you can taste it. Finally, a dash of strong design adds structure to the abstract, making the clash unforgettable. These notes working in harmony elicit a euphoric release unlike any other, a climax worthy of capitalizing our adventures. Summarizing those heights is one thing, let me show you the depth behind them. Stakes are inherently woven into difficulty. It's a topic I've discussed at length in other videos. The long and short of it is pushing players to their limits in an engaging way is vital to providing a sense of accomplishment. This engagement relies on design that juggles fun, fairness, and skill expression. Dark Souls Beta Chaos illustrates how hefty challenge doesn't add compelling stakes in a vacuum. It strips all notion of skill expression by blindsiding you with platforming ill-suited for the player's limited mobility. Dodging poorly indicated sweeps designed to knock you into hidden chasms is an unfair gotcha moment. Expecting you to navigate this minefield without reasonable tools to deal with it drains out every ounce of fun imaginable. Difficulty without engaging the player in entertaining, perceptively fair, and ingenious ways that highlight your talents proves meaningless. If anything, it pulls you out of the experience, both figuratively and literally. Raise your hand if you've ever looked up how to cheese a difficult boss you aren't enjoying. In equal measure, bosses that are too easy fail to engage us. This was my predominant gripe with Another Crab's Treasure. With few exceptions, most bosses were woefully undertuned in the face of overpowered skills and button mashing. Dark Souls 3's Deacons of the Deep suffer from similar frailty. The only expression of skill lies in uncovering their gimmick, that the highlighted deacon is your target. This is a one-time discovery made all too swiftly. Their numbers hardly matter either thanks to their slow and sparse attacks. Even when damaged, you'll find it feels more like a pillow than a fireball. The final boss makes a late appearance in a last-ditch effort to provide something, yet most builds mow him down before he can do much of anything. Curb-stomping climactic moments is deflating rather than engaging. What we seek is nirvana in the middle ground. A boss like Bloodborne's Ludwig the Accursed has high attack speed, a wide attack radius, and extensive move pool that require reactionary, deliberate, directional dashes exclusive to Bloodborne's high-octane combat. Timing these well is rewarded not only by avoiding damage, but giving better opportunity to counter, specifically by targeting his limbs, because Ludwig's appendages each have their own individual health, stunning him when depleted, and taking increased targeted damage. The short gap between his attacks, his ability to reposition anywhere in the arena at a second's notice, and how directionally targeted many of his moves are ask the player to make precise decisions to best capitalize on all of these weaknesses. There's added stakes in the penalty of dodging with poor timing, subjecting you to often lethal counter damage. The mountain of quick twitch decision making required here is a thrilling measure of skill fairly paced for the game's combat. Taking a step back from the fight itself, consider what the price of your resistance is. In a Souls-like, the most obvious answer is the game's currency, be it souls, blood echoes, runes, what have you. Victory awards them, whereas losses forfeit your current bankroll. Fail to reclaim it before another defeat, and it's gone for good. Tying this currency to stats and items that make success more manageable is another way of adding stakes. Taking it a step further, currency can be measured as progress. Considering you earn it from dozens of smaller encounters throughout the stage, you could look at defeat as a loss of time. At the extreme, think back to the early days of gaming, when losing against a boss could mean repeating an entire stage, or at worst, game over. As competition for widely split attention spans has increased, developers have added more aggressive checkpoints and failure recovery systems to compensate. This is the essence of why Dark Souls was so celebrated in small circles until FromSoft grew into the juggernaut it is today. They created a high-stakes system that is constantly gambling your progress against a world desperate to claim it at every turn. That weight adds gravity to already imposing bosses that more often than not nail difficulty in the manner we outline. Well-balanced difficulty adds engagement, and it does so against meaningful stakes that incentivize you to resist and overcome. The final aspect equally important to this formula is another FromSoft continues to champion: narrative purpose. Looking outside of the individual impact on you as the player, what is the outcome of your defeat or victory on the character you control? What about your enemy and the world they inhabit? Perhaps this is all a personal vendetta with little ramifications on the world at large, or maybe it will have cascading consequences for all. Take our battle against Ludwig. You aim to defeat the ravenous specter of a knight who drowned under the futility of his crusade. His misguided ambition rotted to anguish, tormenting his fellow souls of the damned. Felling the beast not only frees them, it brings Ludwig to his senses for a moment of fleeting honor before putting him to rest. Battles that tell us something about ourselves, our opponent, and have widespread ramifications add valuable context to the stakes of our own crusade. The depth that lies behind this context is the catalyst for atmosphere. Consider how I learned of those damned souls begging for mercy. It's the opening cutscene where an addled soul pleads for salvation. This sets a palpable horror as the beast is revealed. This terror gives meaning to the phase transition as Ludwig's madness subdues into firm resolve. His eyes illuminated, awash with the comforting light of his blood-soaked blade. His reawakened determination pierces your gaze, a solemn stare giving way to a brilliant score growing frantically bombastic as Ludwig's blows become more controlled. All of this amidst an arena wrought with carnage illustrating his bloodthirsty rage inspires an unforgettable mood. Compare this to your average filler boss in any Souls-like failing to capture any of the same magic. Why am I fighting this crab haphazardly shoved into the middle of this level? There's no stakes at all as I mindlessly mashed it out of existence with little emotion to speak of. This highlights an underrated aspect of atmosphere, the lead-in. Not merely an introductory cutscene, the entire stage is a catalyst for rising tension. The setting, the enemies within, and the stakes of exploration can greatly influence your mood, asking developers to carefully pace levels to introduce bosses at the perfect moment. Harkening back to the beta bullshit once again, the underbaked slog proceeding inspired annoyance in the player before they even slid into its arena, whereas the research hall following Ludwig is a shining example of the perfect interlude. The Tower of Torture gives insight into the church's experiments, setting a deeply disturbing vibe. Your excruciating ascent into the failed eldritch abominations inflicts a stressful curiosity into the final result. Enter the living failures, sentient embodiments of a holy curiosity taken a million steps too far. This misstep is not only to the church's chagrin, but your own as well. The stakes and atmosphere may be really good, but the oversized blue goobers lack the final vital ingredient for a compelling boss: strong mechanical design. Bosses shouldn't follow an identical blueprint to the combat preceding them. They must showcase unique elements that contrast standard play. This encourages you to use your kit in novel ways, elevating demands and increasing stakes. Yet, there's a balance. Bosses that differ too greatly from standard gameplay are ill-suited for core mechanics. The living failures are an example of playing it too safe. Fighting them feels a little different than the horrors that precede them. Their lanky, erratic swings are easy to dodge or recover from, with plenty of downtime to heal or hack away scot-free. Like the Deacons, they rely on numbers under a unified health bar to make up for bland mechanics, but that vitality only serves to bloat the boring affair. The inverse problem is well illustrated by our timeless punching bag of chaos. The floor crumbling from beneath the player when it's too late to survive is difficulty designed the worst way possible, wasting your time unfairly thanks to no mid-air mobility to change your fate. Someone at FromSoft cooked far past well done, and it eternally blemishes the late hours of Lordran. In contrast, everything I illustrated about Ludwig is why he's an excellent fit for Bloodborne. His size, depth of attacks, speed, and directional motion pushes demand on the player's dexterity and ingenuity to the edge, which are talents you've honed throughout your time with the game. A very common way to distinguish bosses are puzzles. These conundrums dictate key weaknesses for the player to identify. Cases like the Deacons show an overly obvious answer steals satisfaction, which is all the more damaging when the combat design is also lacking. A game series featuring puzzle bosses at their finest is The Legend of Zelda. Bosses often feature weak points that require using newly obtained items in the dungeons they inhabit. Dungeons are treated as playgrounds for you to gain experience with these tools, allowing the bosses to serve as a well-earned punctuation mark to your mastery. The series does an excellent job hitting a stride between satisfying complexity and the difficulty of implementing your solution. While FromSoft's puzzling forays are more divisive, they have succeeded in creating combat that well exceeds standard play. Enter the Storm Ruler, allowing you to rend Storm King out of the sky, bring Yorm the Giant to his knees, and fight together on equal footing to Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. Rykard's Spear is the evolution of the format, trading a single slash for a more complex, yet still intuitive move pool. You can sneak in fast light attacks for consistent damage, in between heavy jump attacks, and long wound weapon arts for massive damage. Choosing when to implement each rewards adept timing with potential animation cancels and eventual posture breaks. Measuring how close Rykard is to stunning and dazing him at the perfect moment to interrupt his ultimate attack feels amazing. It's earned through an adept understanding of his attack speed and animation windups. This vigilance is split by careful attention to pulsating flames around you and your relative positioning to the boss. While the way you engage with each of these elements is unique to Rykard, they are all mirrors of the gameplay loop at large in Elden Ring. The execution is a smashing success. With a design framework distinguishing itself, stakes offering balanced challenge, incentive to succeed, and story significance layered with deep atmosphere from each tale, setting, and harrowing score to accompany it all, bosses become otherworldly spectacles with peak gameplay. That's the onus for my boss rankings, getting an opportunity to yap about the bosses we love. Subscribe to stay tuned for those, and leave a like if you're a fellow boss enjoyer. Thank you for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video.